You might start from a place where it is more difficult for you than it would be for someone else not in those circumstances, but it's never impossible.
This is the Deep Dive with Adam Roa.
What up, deep divers? What up, Create community? All of you who are here live right now. This is a deep dive live. So we have taken the podcast and during this crazy COVID-19 time, have started to do them this way with a live podcast audience. And so as you're tuned in here live, feel free to use the chat box, leave some questions or comments or anything like that. And my guest today is Danette May. And I'm going to tell you how I met Danette. I met Danette because she came to my spoken word show, Permission to Think Freely, when I did it in Denver. And she left a testimonial video actually afterwards that I got to see later that was just so kind. And she came up to me afterwards and she was so authentic and genuine in her acknowledgement of me that I felt like I was actually seen by someone who I had up on like this pedestal. Because if you don't know Danette, she is a Hay House author. She is she runs a multi-million-dollar health, wellness, fitness brand. She has Cacao Bliss, which is an incredible cacao product. And she's so authentic and genuine. And I think that has very much been the key to her success and why she resonates with so many people. And so to get a reflection from you, Danette, around, I felt really seen by someone that I respected so much. So it's so cool for me to have you now here and for us to actually be friends, not faking it for the audience, but actually I consider you a good friend of mine. So thank you for being here.
Oh my gosh, that was so nice of you to say. That's fun for me to hear how you felt on our first time meeting, because for me, I was blown away. I'm sure all of you are blown away by Adam and his gift for spoken word and his gift of just being vulnerable through that art. And it was like so powerful for me. And then I brought him to my Rise event where 1,000 women were gathered and he just blew them out of the water. I think he couldn't hardly get out of the building without them lining up to talk to him. So it's just been fun to do this journey with you and to see you grow and just be on the journey to really remind people of this power that lives within each one of us and this love that we get to have for ourselves and ultimately how that transcribes into us manifesting and living into our dreams.
Yeah, thank you. And we measured it. Ryan Fontana actually had to pull me out of the building. It was 3 hours. There was a lineup of women for 3 hours giving hugs and they were crying. There was a lot of tears shed in that one. It's a really great episode actually of The Art of Choosing Love for anyone who wants to go look that up on YouTube, because that was on your stage at your event. I was honored to be one of only 2 men that was invited to speak on that stage to over 1,000 women. And that was the first time that I ever publicly spoke about my sexual abuse when I was a child. And so that wasn't even planned. That was unplanned. If you remember, I was on stage and I was speaking about forgiveness and the power of forgiveness and saying how right now it really lies in the hands of women. And I could just kind of empathically feel the room being like, who is this dude telling us to forgive? And so that's when I felt like we had to create a rapport and a connection point. And as sad as it may be, trauma and wounding and abuse and all of these things is one of the most widespread connection threads that wraps around this planet. So many people have experienced that. And so thank you for giving me that stage. Thank you for being a huge part of the like waterfall of emotion that would come after that for basically years. I would say that only in 2020 have I really felt like I've moved past that for the most part. So yeah, that was a intense one for me.
Oh, so good. I want to hear from people in the chat. I don't know, our chat's coming up. I want to know who's on. I want to say hi to you. I want to make sure you guys feel like we're all in this together, this conversation together. So I would love to see who's on.
Let me know, leave where you're from. Where are you tuning in from? So where in the world you are right now.
Carola And now he's in Maui. Wow. Amazing. Mexico. Ingrid, that's amazing. So fun. Look at these people all over. Santa Monica, Florida. Cool. Yep. Hi, Vicky. This is Adam's mom.
Yeah, that's my mom. She's probably got the record for most events attended. This entire community is just for her, actually. That's the big
Andrea, good to see you guys. Thanks for saying hi. It's good to all be connected right now.
And you're outside of Boulder right now, outside of Denver right now, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Right now. How
is this quarantine time been treating you? Like, how have you been using it? What is your view on it?
Well, okay. So you guys, I'm going to speak from my perspective. I'm going to speak from my perspective quite unapologetically, because I am not a stranger to chaos. And, we can get into it later. So my biggest chaos, refiner's fire, my biggest times of feeling fear and just, destruction and disruption was in 2011, 2012. So for me in this time, just because I had that time in my life where I really got to unlayer into my true character, that this time feels like a different experience for me. Because for me, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of uncertainty. But I feel like I was made for this in some way, because our business is all online. All of our employees, we have 67 full-time employees, they're all around the globe. And we've all been working on Slack, online, and we are a business that's a health business. And we were always all along, because this is my mission, showing people how to cook with 5 ingredients. All of our recipes are 5 ingredients or less. All of our workouts are at-home workouts, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And then meditations around peace and self-love. So that's our like continuity program. And then we created superfoods that were all around boosting your immunity and taking ancient forms of healing and bringing it to our modern world, so that everyone could live into their harmony and their perfect biostasis inside their system. So, and then we live on top of a mountain, and in Colorado, where we have access to trails, and we're already away from people. So I'm used to that. I'm not always in the social scene unless I'm traveling for work. So, for me, I'm feeling, because I have team in the Philippines, I have team all over the world. I'm feeling into the energy of people, but I've recognized that my energy and choosing to not dismiss what's going on, but saying, you know what, I'm going to choose joy every day. I'm going to choose love every day. And I'm going to choose to see this as an opportunity. I'm going to choose to be grateful for this time, because I know out of chaos comes equal or greater good. And I know that my frequency is connected to every single human on the planet. So the greatest thing I can do is stay in joy and look for the opportunities, and hopefully infuse others with that energy, because I know we're all connected through our subconscious and through our nervous systems. So that's how I'm taking it. I could go down the rabbit hole of a different angle. I mean, there's all these sorts of angles that everyone can take, and everyone has their own experience. But for me, I'm feeling really grateful at this time.
What do you think is, so the best thing that you can do right now, you just said, is to remember to stay in joy and gratitude, see this as an opportunity to develop yourself, and in whatever ways are calling to you, right? Because that'll look different to every single person. Like what you use this time to develop is totally up to you, whoever you are, wherever you are, what it is that you want to design for your life. I'm curious what you see as the opportunity right now collectively. Like I use the analogy of, I feel as if we're on an elevator together and we're going on this ride, and the doors will open and we will get off on some floor somewhere. And which floor we actually get off on will be based on the work that we do while in the elevator. Right. And so I'm curious what you think is the big opportunity for us collectively, and what you're hoping to see come out of this.
Yeah, I'm going to read a quick quote for you guys, because I am loving, it's not even really a quote, it's a statement. Do you guys know who Napoleon Hill is? He wrote Think and Grow Rich, somebody that I've researched so much beyond his book. He is really a thought leader when it comes to stuff, but something that he said, which I'm like, dang. He says, Remember too that all who succeed in life get off to a bad start and pass through many heartbreaking struggles before they arrive. The turning point in the lives of those who succeed usually comes at the moment of some crisis through which they are introduced to their other selves. So to me, the greatest opportunity that I have, and I believe everyone listening, is this opportunity to be introduced to our other selves, to be introduced to what I believe is our truer selves, to the unmasking, to the unlayering, to these ideas of relationships that we thought we had to have, to the things that we thought we had to have, to this path that we thought we were taking, and dismantle it so that we can be introduced to that other part of who we are. And I think about this story. Oh, go ahead, Adam. I know you're going to ask.
No, go ahead. You're about to tell a story. Story time with Danette May.
Story time with Danette. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm a mom. And I remember my oldest at the time, I think she was around five or six. And then my youngest was like barely walking. And we had gone down to the lake and she had found this goose egg and it was all by itself. And so she was like, oh my gosh, that doesn't have a mom. We've got to take it home. And I knew the goose egg was not alive. There's no way. The mom had been gone. It's been sitting out there. But for her tender heart, she wanted to bring it home. So she brought the goose egg home. And she was just wrapping it in all her little baby blankets. She would read to it every day. And this went on for like about a week, this goose egg. And literally in split seconds, I look over to the corner of my eye, my youngest who can barely walk, right in front of the oldest that's 5 or 6, grabs the goose egg, doesn't know anything about what's been going on for a week of all this nurturing and this love. She picks it up, chucks it. It splatters everywhere. I thought my oldest child was going to completely kill her younger sister. Her heart was broken. So as any sane mom does, I got on Google, was like, duck eggs. And you can't just order one duck egg. You have to order a dozen, and then they throw 2 extra in just in case those dozen don't come out. So I was like, Sarah, we've got duck eggs on their way. You can nurture all 14 of these duck eggs. And we put them in incubators, and it was this whole process. But what I really learned through my heartbreak and through that moment of watching these duck eggs hatch was this idea of coming out of the shell and how deeply they struggle. I don't know if you guys have witnessed and watched a duck try to hatch itself. It's miraculous. They're going all day. And I remember duck number 12, they'd all hatched, was struggling and had been struggling all day. And my daughter wanted to reach in there and help pry the shell just to give it a little oomph, because if they struggle too long, they're just going to pass away inside the egg. And I had to remind her that if you go in there and help this duck, even just a little bit, it will not survive, because its strength is built in the struggle. Its strength is in persistence over hours and hours and hours. In the life of a duck, hours and hours is like years and years for us. And it's such a remarkable reminder for me, and hopefully all of us, that we need to emerge as our other selves in times of chaos and times of struggle, destruction. And this is our opportunity.
That's a beautiful story. That's very relevant. I think that what comes up for me is I've been in the exploration a lot around the necessity of struggle and the necessity of pain and the necessity of resistance. And I think that struggle, this is a semantics thing, but I do agree. I think that resistance is necessary, right? It's in literally without the resistance of gravity, we don't even develop the muscles that allow us to move. Right? Like it's the gravity and the force pulling on us that allows us to walk on the planet. It's what develops our muscles as we lift things and lift ourselves up out of a chair. And so resistance seems to be so necessary. And, but I also feel like there's this fine line where it slips into people getting so attached to it being hard, right? Like the
Ooh,
underdog
juicy.
story. And it gets into that space where we have these sayings like no pain, no gain. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. All of these things that I feel like instill this collective mindset that if it's not hard, you didn't earn it. Or if it's not hard, you won't appreciate it. And I want to let go of that while still staying truthful, which is you're going to have resistance. The resistance is where we build our strength and our character, because it pushes back and actually asks us, what do we really want? Where are we willing to push in the direction that we desire to go? I'm curious what that brings up for you in terms of that fine line between the two.
Ooh, I loved how juicy you get because you love to dance in these polarities. And I love that about you. So yeah, you need resistance to rise. You need resistance to rise in a lot of ways. But yes, where can we as humans keep looking for that resistance? And it's almost like this upper limiting thought process, right? Because
Exactly.
you're going to the glass ceiling and you have this idea of how much money you should make. And so if you make a little bit more of that, then you just kind of self-sabotage it because it should be hard. And then you're at that next level. And so there is a fine line. And I'm glad you're bringing that up. And I think for me, and it's something I just spoke on the last conference, because, I run a business, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, and I feel like I operate in this energy of like feminine, which I call feminine. It doesn't necessarily have to be called that. It's just lack of a better word, where I'm writing another book with Hay House, and it's not hard. And every other author I've ever talked to tells me how hard writing a book with a publishing house is. And I'm like, I'm not even sitting down like going, I have to write. I'm actually going out in nature, feeling inspired and talking an audio memo, voice memo, turning it over to the editor to transcribe, and we'll clean it up for beautiful reading based off my audio. That's an example to me of like deciding that it can be easy, or it can be coming from a place of inspiration, but also recognizing there are going to be moments when you're hit up against resistance, and and you'll be able to decide, is this external resistance or am I creating this resistance? Am I creating it? But either way, you get to rise from that resistance. But and a lot of us do this. We do this in our relationships all the time. I have a question for people who have been in relationship, because this is upper limiting is so easy to tell in relationships, because where it happens is when you're on the perfect date. You're like out on a date, everything's going well, and you're like, you know what? Like you just try to find something to fight about, or something that bothered you to bring up just to dismantle the amazingness that you're feeling in the moment. And that's upper limiting. That's where you're trying to create resistance where it doesn't need to be had.
And that goes back to the subject we were talking about at the beginning of the trauma that I experienced at a young age, the sexual abuse, and the amount of people who've experienced some form of violent trauma, sexual trauma, whatever it is, it stores in the system. And so the nervous system actually gets used to being in a kind of just agitated state all the time. So that when you're on that date and everything's going amazing, or when life is just so easy, the nervous system starts to settle. And believe it or not, that is unsettling for the mind. That's been like, wait a second, what's going on? Something's off. Even though it's in a more settled state, it's off from what has been the norm. And the ego, it's not so much about making it more pleasant for you. It's about keeping it the same, right? And so I think that for me, my journey with all of this stuff that we're talking about now really got very refined when I started to just become aware of the kind of unconscious, almost biological nervous system stuff that was happening inside of me that unlocked primarily, again, at your event, at the Rise. From that moment forward was going, wow, okay, I don't know what to do about this. I'm not sure. I didn't realize all of this was behind this closed door that I just opened. And so what have you found to be, as a mom, you get to see it with your kids, even in your own life, what have you found to be the way in which you've been able to navigate these major shifts? Because your story of being completely down and out, like completely down and out, to where you are now in a very short period of time, relatively, is amazing. And in that journey, I know that there are major milestone jumps where reality shifts, right? Like something happens and you're like, whoa, I'm now in a different space, and you get to adjust to that. And as someone who's gone through as many as you have, I'd be curious what you find to be most supportive, or how you've navigated when those shifts happen.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think what you're getting at, Adam, is it's like everybody wants to know that gap, right? It's like you were down and out to where you're at today. What were those shifts and energy or frequency that was the next level? Is that what you're asking?
I'm asking more how you didn't allow yourself to fall into an extended period of that upper limit, where like the nervous system, so you might have said, oh, my business just 10x'd. As someone who made a lot of money very quickly, and then my whole reality changed, and I went, it brought up things that a lot of people don't realize it'll bring up. And so there's every time your reality shifts, every time you launch a new business, every time you have some new level of success, every time something doesn't work, like these are all major, what I would say, milestones that you look back and say, this is a shift that my nervous system needs to adjust to, my mind. Everything has to get in alignment with this new timeline I'm on. And I know that you've been on had several of those, and I'm more curious how you've gotten yourself on board there so that you don't upper limit yourself.
Very good question. I know exactly what my answer is. And I'm just going to speak so bluntly to everybody that it's not in that moment that when you buckle down and go, oh, I'm in a new shift and I got to do X, Y, Z. It's every single day looking at your limiting beliefs. Every single day, you guys, I literally look at a few limiting beliefs that I had that came up through the day, and I write a new belief for it. It's the everyday practice that you're willing to do. And I'm just going to back up a little bit, because for those of you who don't know me, not too long ago, literally I went from losing my son at childbirth and going through deep depression at that time. But as we all know, rock bottom, you got more to go. Dismantled all these stories in my relationship, my ex at the time we were married, but I was like learning how I was not listening to my intuition. There was lies, there was things that I was faking in that relationship, because I woke up with the passing of my son. I started seeing all that, go through this terrible divorce, to where I'm left as a single mom with literally $47.63 that we found inside the couches, inside the drawers, by playing a game with my daughters at the time. I was so low in my mental attitude. I was so wondering if I was ever going to amount to anything. Felt like I was a financial ruin, how I was going to take care of my kids. And I was so private about it. So here I was, like, broke as a joke, not telling anyone, not having any friends, and just raising these kids on my own. And to me, this was my moment. This was my moment, and this was my gift to really rise upon, right? I was at the lowest I could go. I had only to rise upon. And so these were where these tactics took place. And I do not do anything really different today that I did back then. And I'll share exactly what I did. And this is because I had every limiting belief to dismantle. The limiting beliefs at that time were I was a terrible mom. I was raised that you as a woman, you stay in the home, you can. I learned to can beans and cherries. I hate canning, but that was like the thing that I was taught to do. And it was like, you cook, you clean, you can. That's your mission in life. And you stay home with your babies all till they go to college. And if you work outside the home, you're not really living into the full purpose of who you are. So I had to break that limiting belief, because here I am, broke as a joke, a single mom. One, you don't get divorced either. So I'm also a divorced single mom. And I've got to work outside the home. So I had to look at that. My other limiting belief, I grew up always with the conversation that we don't have enough. We don't have enough money to fix our cars. We don't have enough money to, get braces. I never even got braces. I mean, all the limiting beliefs around money were so big for me. That was honestly probably my last hurdle in my journey. Also, now I had a new limiting belief that I can't trust men. And so here I I am like all these beliefs, just looking at them, just facing them head on. So I literally wrote down all of my belief systems that I believed in that moment, but I knew they were being passed on to me. Moms only work in the home. You're only a good mom if you work in the home. Men can't be trusted, blah, 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 blah. And then I literally took them and changed them to the opposite side. This took me while I was crying, sleeping on the floor on a mattress, tinfoil holding up my antennas. I wrote all of it down. All of the things that I truly believed in my soul. I didn't actually believe everything, but I had heard from other leaders, this is what you do. So I am a great mother. I'm a financial success. Money comes easily to me. I can be a good mom and influence other people. I can speak up for my needs. I can trust people, blah, 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 blah. And every day I would read that. And some days, and I had a commitment to myself that anytime I felt a sense of energy shift where I was down on myself or the negative thoughts, you know that rabbit hole, that's where I would read that list. And I would read it every single day. And every year I do this. I take 2 days where I light candles, I have fire, I bring in the yummiest foods, and I write down everything where I'm going as if it's happening right now. And I read it every single day, and magic has happened. I write it in all of it: relationships, health, financial, career, give back, impact. And I do the work for 2 days, and then I read it every single day. And this is what's helped me with limiting beliefs, because when we 10x our business, because I always thought it was a big deal to make $1 million. Like, well, if you just make $1 million and then you're 10xing, you can't even breathe. Like, it's like your company's just going. I kept doing the simple hinge movements of reading these things and just staying in it, staying into my meditation practice, getting out in nature. And it's really, I think, the secret sauce. So when I know more big things are coming, I don't have to actually wonder or worry about the self-sabotage in that moment, because it's the daily practices every day of reading.
You read so you've written out so once a year, let me make sure I get this right. Once a year, you take 2 days and you write it all out. And then every single day until the next year that you do it, you read it.
Yep.
Wow. I
didn't know that you did that. 4 minutes every morning to read through that, right? To read what I wrote. And I read it every single day. And I'm here to tell you, most everything happens in that year. That's why I have to go back and write again. I mean, there's some really big, hairy, audacious goals that I set out for like 3 or 5 years. I have no doubt they're coming, because I know how this works. So but I also like, I know in my mind, okay, this is a year, this is 5 years, and they happen.
And so when you're doing that, what's the space that you allow for changing your mind? Like, what's the space? Like, because I'll speak for myself. Since you've known me, there's been so many drastic shifts in terms of different directions and different unfoldings. And so the idea of even anticipating what I feel like every 3 months something shifts. Do you go in and edit? Are you pretty clear?
Yeah, the only time I really edit is with it already happened, right? So sometimes things happen in 3 months, 4 months inside that year. So then I edit to create more. But I don't actually, here's the deal. Like, when I dream pretty big, it's the only way I would change is like, maybe it manifests, right? Let's just say, for example, I was dreaming of being an author. Let's just say that was a dream like 3 years ago, and then I got a book deal. And let's say I actually didn't enjoy that process. Then I could switch it up to say, I don't want to, that I wouldn't put that in my vision casting or my soul mapping for the following year. But I'm always willing to step into it. So you're not going to be too specific. You're not going to be like, I'm going to be dating XYZ. Say like you're single or whatever. I'm going to be dating, and you name her name, because ultimately that can shift, right? That can shift by tomorrow. So I would really write out what you're really calling in as far as the energy of the frequency of that person versus like specific names, things like that.
Got it. Cool. Well, I think, and for everyone, we've been referencing upper limit problems. For those of you who aren't familiar or want to dive deeper into that, the book is The Big Leap.
Yes,
by
by
Gay
Gay
Hendricks. Yeah. So if you want to go more deeply into upper limit problems specifically, for those of you interested. So Danette, what's the big goal right now? What are you calling in? Like, what is that thing that you are actively
Oh,
in?
you're putting me on the spot in front of
Yeah,
all.
because it's important for people to understand that you, as someone who's accomplished so much, are still dreaming every day. You're literally reading it every single day. And so I'm curious, what sort of thing are you calling in? This is my personal question as a friend.
Yeah, so I've actually been calling this in for probably about 4 or 5 years. When I close, actually I have 2 big things, guys. I'll just say them. Let's just put it out there. Maybe everyone can hold some mojo for me. So for me, one of them is, I do tons of stuff on social, right? I do lives like this. I have a YouTube show. I had one in the past and we changed it to a new kind of model. Even YouTube reached out and said, hey, how can we support? Let's run ads. Let's test through this. But I've always really dreamed beyond just something within a social media platform. I really thought of it being like a main network where I was on a show highlighting the human spirit and how our thoughts and certain needle point movements that we can do in our lives can have dramatic shifts on our lives. And I always thought of myself, like, the show on HGTV, The Fixer Upper, where they go in and they fix up this old house down in Texas, and then they have the big reveal. I was like, I would love to do a show on the human spirit. Let the human spirit be that dilapidated house, and then just show like that whole human spirit and the evolution of that human spirit by just tweaking a few things. And so that is one big audacious dream I have. And it's not that I want to do it and produce it myself. I would love a whole production team handling all of that. I would love big dollars behind us so that we can reach millions of people. And it's interesting because this has been a dream of mine, and I kind of just was reading it. And at early of 2020, I was like, you need to start talking about it. So thank you for asking. But I started talking about it, and I got connected with the producers of the Twilight series. And different producers were flying in from LA being like, hey, we've been following you for 3 years. We would love to hear if you have any show ideas. So it's actually in the works. There's been no signing on the line, but it's interesting how it's starting to even come in quicker the more I've opened up to talk about it versus just me reading about it.
I've actually heard both sides of that in terms of manifestation. I've read books and different things from spiritual teachers who talk about that keeping it internally is like cultivating that energy, that internal energy that can magnetize it to you. And then I've heard, the other side, which is actually being ready and willing to speak it, is an ownership of it in a way that calls it forth. So which one resonates more with you?
The only thing that really resonates for me is this quote by Rumi: what you seek is seeking. So to me, it's not so, it doesn't matter if I'm saying it or just to myself or outwardly. And it's not even that I need to manifest it. It's already here. It's seeking me. It's me being willing to voice vocally if I need to voice vocally in that moment. It's me showing up, reading it every day and seeing it every day. So for me, it's knowing that it's seeking me.
Yeah. I feel for me, it's when I am now telling people that I'm doing it, assuming I actually am doing it, or assuming I am calling it in, that at that stage, I feel like I'm saying that I'm taking ownership of this, where I'm willing to risk looking stupid if it doesn't happen, right? There's that ownership, whereas if we keep our dreams just completely silent and don't tell anybody, etc., a lot of times that's because there's so much doubt of it happening. There's actually doubt that we would be able to commit to it at the level we know deep down is necessary to achieve it. And so it's like, well, I'm just going to, put it on my vision board and I'm going to keep it here, but I'll make sure no one knows about this secret desire. And the moment I go out on social media, the moment that I say I'm doing this thing, there's a like maybe it is a pressure. There's a pressure that I put, but a healthy pressure of like, okay, I've taken ownership of this. I have stated publicly I'm going to do it. And so that helps me a lot. And maybe that's why I found a balance, I think, as someone who seems to have a reputation for doing a lot of shit. I feel as if I've done that, but I also am not talking about all of the things that I'm doing. So it has been that balance. Although I don't read the thing, you've inspired me. Maybe that's the next step for me, is just reading it every day.
Yeah. I don't know. And there's a fine line. Everyone has their different internal, which you would read about in The Big Leap. But a lot of times it's like we don't want to voice it because it sounds like we're gloating, or that we think we're bigger than we are. And we don't want to be shining too bright on these goals. Fear of judgment, right? Not that you don't think it's happening, but the people are be like, who do you think you are, right? So it just depends on where you're coming from. I don't think there's a right or wrong way with any of this. I just think that the bigger thing here is just recognizing that and having a belief system that it's actually seeking you as much as you're seeking it.
Yeah. And I think one of the biggest things that I'm taking from you here is, as well, and I hope everyone else is taking from you, is also the consistency. You treat your manifestation process, you treat your dreams and visions the way that most people treat, or the way that anyone who wants to be great at anything treats it. It's a daily practice. It is a habit. I can't hear you. Hold on. Are you muted? I'm going to unmute you.
Oh, I was unmuted. Yeah, I think that actually comes from my trainer background, because I've always understood that for the client to see results or for my body to change, it's not the big workout you do once a week. It's the everyday consistent movements you're willing to do, the consistent healing foods you're willing to take on. And it doesn't have to be like you're sore every single day. It can just be these movements that you do every single day, these small things. And it's like that internal spiritual muscle that I'm building. So yeah, I would say that you're bang on.
And we both have that background. You know, I had my own personal training business for 7 years and the athlete's background. So I agree that if we can, and the thing is, how did you turn it into, I would say you're someone, let's see, let me say how to say this. Yeah.
Just let it rip, Adam.
No, I would say, well, because it's funny, because you're also one of the few people who I consider a good friend and someone I respect a great deal, who we also fight a little bit sometimes. And and I'm like, I told Ryan one time, maybe even a year ago, I was like, I don't think Danette's talking to me right now. And so, yeah, but what I love about that is I feel as if you're so authentic. I said at the very beginning here, you're so authentically you that you speak your mind even, and I'm the same way. So when we disagree, we disagree. And yet what that is there doesn't seem to be these parts of yourself. It's like the things that you want to make a part of your life become a part of you. They become a habit. They become just like how you're living your life. Like that day that you were on a rock bottom and you said, I'm going to write this out. And all of a sudden that became a part of your life. And so many people, when they're on this path of personal development and growth and wanting to create the life of their dreams, it becomes a fight, because it's like every time they're having to choose something and they have to like overcome the resistance and that sort of thing. Do you have any tricks or things that you've noticed along the way, any tips for how you've been able to do that? How you've been able to take these things that so many people struggle to make habits. It's hard for a lot of people. You've managed to incorporate them in your life way where I feel like that's what's led to the authenticity that's of us experience of you.
Yeah. Before I get into that, I've always loved you and I've never not wanted to talk to you. And honestly, you
You
guys,
were upset when I was on Bumble. Remember, you literally tried to take
I was
my
mad
phone.
at Adam for being on Bumble.
We were in New York. We were in New York at a restaurant, and you like yelled at me from the other table. I remember it. I remember it. You had a whole women's circle where all the women ganged up on me. I remember it.
Yeah, no, this is kind of, if you're my friend, here's what happens. If I see certain aspects of you, whether you like it or not, I will speak my mind because I love you so much. So I'll be like, I don't like this. And it doesn't even mean it's the truth. It doesn't even mean I'm right. It just means that I'm like, love you enough to challenge you. So that's where that came from.
You're so loving. You were so loving. You loved me so much that you yelled at me across the room.
Totally. Only the greatest friends get yelled at by me. But yeah, okay. So truly, I love what you say because it's so true. And you're mirroring back to me things that I didn't even recognize, but now I'm seeing, I do that. This is what I believe. I think a lot of us are not deciding. We're tolerating. We're tolerating so many things in our lives because we can. You see, back in the day, I couldn't tolerate anything because I literally had to take care of 2 mouths that I loved dearly. I needed to feed them. So the problem is why you're in the relationships that are not serving you because you're tolerating it. Why you have the income you do is because you're tolerating it. Because you're tolerating it in the fact that, and I'm going to be so blunt for just a minute, and Adam knows this is how I roll, but it's like, I have people literally come to me and be like, I have this dream and I feel it so much and I don't know how to like get it to go. And I'm like, how do you spend your day? And they're like, well, I go to this job. And I'm like, what do you drive? Well, I have a Range Rover. Okay. And how many times do you go out to eat a week? I go out with my girlfriends probably for coffee at least 3 times, or we'll go out. And I'm not saying that any of that's wrong, but my question to them is like, how bad have you decided that this dream is more important than your coffee dates, your Range Rover, your job, and then your social media time instead of working on your dream? The problem is so many people are just not deciding. And it's really simple to me because then you're wrestling with your brain. Can you imagine if you wrestled with your brain on brushing your teeth every day? Like no one would brush their teeth. But it's so ingrained in the fact that you just know that that's what you're going to do. You've already decided. That's who I am. I'm a person who brushes my teeth. This is the person I am. And so I really want to challenge everyone to decide and to look at where they're tolerating. And most likely you just don't want it bad enough. If something's not manifesting or showing up in your life, you just don't want it bad enough.
Yes. I love that you went there. And I'm just calling out all the people in that because I feel like something that you and I, there's this thing that happens. Like if people were to observe either of our days, if someone were to observe my days over the last month since launching this community, they would see multiple days of 10 back-to-back meetings, calls, boom, 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 with maybe an hour and a half of free space in between there where I eat, where I literally I'm not kidding, I couldn't even finish my meal, so I have another plate on top of it because I didn't have time to get it finished before this started. There is one thing that I learned being an athlete when I was younger, and I thought I was good. So I was on the Arizona national team as a wrestler, and I thought I was good. And then when I got older, I watched this documentary about a high school wrestling team where I observed them doing the wrestling matches, going home, doing their homework, and then they had a friend in the neighborhood who had wrestling mats in the basement that their dad set up, and they would go, and what they did for fun was spend all their time like wrestling. That was the thing. That was what they did for fun. And I realized I would never be able to beat them. When we went to the international, like national dual match, I got my ass kicked by people from Wisconsin and New York. And the thing was, I thought I was good, but I didn't have a reference point for what greatness took. And when people think about, oh, Adam, like how do I do this thing? Exactly what you said. I get in conversations with people like you. And I would like to think, and maybe you can reflect back to me if this is true, I'd like to think that every time we've met, I've been inquisitive about like what you're doing and like, what are you doing? Maybe, is there a way for us to collaborate? Here's what I'm doing. And just constantly wanting to know what the people I respect and look up to, what they are doing, how they're doing it, what the books they're reading, and pouring into this sort of practice. Because I learned a long time ago that if you don't have a reference point for what greatness looks like, it's very difficult to know how far you can go. And so I love that you mentioned that specifically around, you don't want it bad enough. You don't want it bad enough if it's not showing up into your life. You get to adjust your behavior to align yourself with what it actually takes. And it's not always fair. Life is not fair. So you may start from a place where you don't have the financial resources. You might start from a place where you are a single mother or a single father. You might start from a place where it is more difficult for you than it would be for someone else not in those circumstances, but it's never impossible.
Yeah.
And so I love that you went there. And I think that it's important for people to hear from people like yourself who have made it from bottom to top in a space where they worked their ass off. And even if that work looks like every morning starting it off by reading that's part of the work that it takes, because that's not time that you're just screwing off. That is in alignment with where you want to go.
Yeah, so good. I saw someone comment when you were speaking. They were just like, boom, boom, Adam, yes.
Yeah, does anyone have any questions? This would be a good time. Type a question in the chat box and we can get to it. Danette, let people know also where they can find you. Like, where you have a lot of online real estate. Where do they follow you? You have a book called The Rise, which is epic. Yeah. Let people know about that while they're typing in their questions.
Okay, yeah. So for me, it's pretty simple. You guys, I have two different businesses. We have the Danette May brand, and then we have our superfood company, which is Earth Echo Foods. So Earth Echo Foods, if you want to like get superfoods, go there. If you want to get free content, I do something on the blog. We have newsletters every single day where we're driving content and just give. And that's just DanetteMay.com. You can see where I'm speaking, what's going on. Thanks, whoever wrote that in. That was nice.
You too.
Yeah, that's you. So that's where you can find me, and obviously on social, and both the social on Facebook and Instagram is the Danette May. So yeah, just thank you. Anybody who wants to connect, I'd love it.
Awesome. Well, it doesn't even seem like anyone's got questions. I don't know if that means that we did a great job of covering all kinds of things, or if we did a terrible job of sparking some questions. And Danette, when's the next time you and I get to hang out? Obviously after COVID, but what do you have going on? Are you going to do another Rise event? Do you have anything planned for the later part of this year?
Yes. Thank you, Annie. Thank you for saying thank you. So I have a book that's coming out, another book, which I'm so excited about, this next book with Hay House. And we are planning on doing these massive events. I'm collaborating with them in around March of 2021. I imagine I'll see you before then, Adam, but maybe you'll see Adam at one of those events. I'm going to definitely talk to Adam. But they're going to be really fun. There's going to be like 2,000 people in one place. I think Hay House is a little nervous that people are not going to want to gather, but I have a feeling that people are just feeling this desire more than ever to come together in spirit. And I just think that we're all safe ultimately, and there'll be a time when we can gather. And for me, I'm ready. I don't know if anybody else is in the comments. Say a 1 if you're ready, but I'm like an introvert. And right before this whole thing went down, I decided that I actually wanted to hang out with more friends. And I was like, told my husband, I was like, you know what? I want to be out there more. I want to hang out with people. I'm sorry I'm changing up the rules, but I think I want to go and live in California for a while. And it's funny because then I'm like alone. And now I'm like, You know what? I am ready to get together with some of my favorite people and just hug and laugh and just really not take for granted friendship and connection. So hopefully we see each other soon.
Yeah, there'll be by March 2021, if we're not allowed to gather in groups, I feel like something went terribly awry with how this whole thing is playing out. It's good. That seems my personal hope is that, we're able to like travel and get back to kind of some level of whatever the new normal is going to be by like July. That's kind of what I'm.
Yeah, I had a lot of big speaking events. I had one in Spain that was going to be amazing, and then Thrive was going on. So they're all moving them to fall, and then I think we'll be gathering. We'll see.
I think so. I was supposed to speak in Vienna and be in Bali right now, and it's like, all right, we're just rolling with it. But yeah, the first opportunity that we get to be in the same place, I got a big hug for you, Danette. Thank you again for coming on this Deep Dive Live and sharing your brilliance with the Create community here. I just appreciate you so much, and I encourage everybody to follow Danette on social media, check out her book, check out all of the offerings that she has. Her product Cacao Bliss is also delicious. So yeah, Danette, once again, thank you. Everybody on screen, you can show her some love.
Love you guys. Thank you guys for showing up, and thank you, Adam, for creating space for people to grow. You really need to hear. And what I want to mirror back to you really quick, because you're giving and you're giving and you're giving and you're showing up all the time. And the thing about you that I really love and I really admire is your willingness to go into the cave of curiosity so other people can learn without having to go in there and get bumped and bruised and bit by bats and all of that. You're like going into the cave of learnings and coming out with honest feedback, honest learnings, so that other people that are just not cave dwellers can learn from it and grow. And you create so many things for people to learn and to explore and to tap into the parts of who they are. And for that, I'm always grateful for you, because you've cracked my heart open so many times and just made me see different parts of me. And so thank you for your art. Thank you for your business sense. And thank you for what you create and show up and do in this world.
E-hug. There we go. I love you so much. Create family. Thank you for being here live. Thank you to everybody who is listening to the recording or watching the videos. I want to remind everybody that always, in all ways, you are seen, you are heard, and you are loved. Have a really beautiful rest of your day.